You are doing it right now, aren't you? Or at least you are fighting the urge. Just the mention of the word yawn is enough to trigger a chain reaction in your brain that makes your jaw want to unhinge. If you haven't done it yet, don't worry. By the time we get to the 2-minute mark of this video, there's a 50% chance you will have succumbed to the most mysterious, uncontrollable, and contagious reflex in human history. We do it when we are tired. We do it when we are bored. We even do it when we see a dog do it. But why? For decades, we thought we knew the answer. We were told it was about oxygen, that our bodies were just gasping for a literal breath of fresh air. But it turns out that theory is 100%.
Let's start with the big lie. For years, teachers and even some doctors told us that we yawn because our bodies are low on oxygen and have too much carbon dioxide. The idea was that a big, deep yawn brings in a massive gulp of O2 and flushes out the waste. It sounds logical, right? Well, back in 1987, a psychologist named Robert Provine decided to actually test this. He put people in a room and pumped in different levels of gases. He gave one group 100% pure oxygen. If the theory was true, they should have stopped yawning entirely. But they didn't. They kept yawning at the exact same rate. Then he gave another group a high concentration of carbon dioxide, and instead of yawning more, they just started breathing faster. The conclusion was clear. Yawning has absolutely nothing to do with the gas levels in your blood. So if it's not for oxygen, what is it for?
Enter the brain cooling theory. Think about your brain like a high-performance computer. Your brain represents only 2% of your total body weight, but it consumes 20% of your body's entire energy supply. All that thinking and processing generates a massive amount of heat. And just like a laptop that gets too hot and starts to lag, a warm brain doesn't function very well. Researchers believe that yawning is essentially a sophisticated radiator system for your head. When you yawn, the powerful stretch of your jaw increases blood flow to your skull. At the same time, that deep intake of air cools down the blood in your mouth and nasal cavities. This cooler blood then travels up to the brain, dropping its temperature by a fraction of a degree. It sounds like a small change, but it's enough to keep you alert and sharp. This explains why we yawn more when we are tired or bored. When you are sleepy, your brain's internal temperature naturally rises. The yawn is your body's way of saying, hey, we are overheating here. Let's cool things down so we can stay awake just a little bit longer.
There was a fascinating study done with ice packs to prove this. Researchers found that people who held a cold pack to their foreheads almost never caught a contagious yawn. Why? Because their brains were already cool. But the people holding warm packs, they yawned like crazy. It's a biological thermostat that you can't turn off. But that only explains the physical side of things. It doesn't explain the weirdest part of yawning. Why is it so incredibly contagious?
If you see someone yawn across the room, you will probably yawn. If you hear someone yawn on a phone call, you will probably yawn. Even reading the word yawn in this script is probably making your throat feel a little tight. This isn't just a human thing either. Chimpanzees catch yawns from each other. Dogs catch yawns from their owners. Even lions in the wild have been seen yawning in sequence. This is where the science gets a little bit deeper and a little bit more social. Scientists believe contagious yawning is actually a form of ancient biological empathy. It is a way for a group to synchronize its behavior. Imagine you were part of a tribe of early humans 50,000 years ago. You are all sitting around a fire. If one person yawns to cool their brain and stay alert, the rest of the group catches it so that everyone's brain gets that same boost of alertness at the exact same time. It's a group-wide system update to make sure the entire pack is ready for a predator. This is why you are much more likely to catch a yawn from a friend or a family member than from a total stranger. The stronger your emotional bond with someone, the more likely your brain is to mirror their physical state. In fact, there is a very specific group of people who are significantly less likely to catch a contagious yawn: psychopaths. Now, don't panic. If you didn't yawn just now, it doesn't mean you are a serial killer. But studies have shown that people who score high on personality tests for cold-heartedness and lack of empathy tend to be immune to the yawning reflex, because their brains aren't wired to mirror the emotions or physical states of those around them. The social trigger of the yawn just doesn't fire. For the rest of us, yawning is a sign that we are socially connected. It's a silent way of saying,
I'm with you. But the mystery goes even deeper than social bonds. Did you know that babies yawn in the womb? Ultrasound technology has captured fetuses yawning as early as 11 weeks after conception. They aren't bored, and they certainly aren't tired from a long day of work. At that stage, their lungs aren't even breathing air yet. This suggests that yawning is deeply tied to the development of the brain and the nervous system. It's one of the very first things our bodies learn how to do, long before we even know how to cry or smile.
And then there is the animal kingdom. Animals don't just yawn to cool their brains, they use it as a weapon. For a baboon, a yawn is a terrifying display of power. They show off their massive 2-inch canine teeth to warn rivals to stay away. It's a polite way of saying, "Look how big my teeth are, don't mess with me." Snakes yawn to realign their jaws after eating a massive meal. Penguins yawn as part of their elaborate courtship rituals. Even fish yawn, though in their case, it's usually to flush out their gills. Every creature has a slightly different reason, but the physical motion remains almost identical across the board. So, what have we learned? We know it's not about oxygen. We know it's likely about cooling the brain. We know it's a tool for social bonding and empathy. But even with all this data, scientists admit that yawning is still one of the least understood behaviors in biology. There is something called the yawn transition theory, which suggests we yawn whenever we are switching states, switching from awake to asleep, from bored to focused, from resting to active. It's like the brain's way of hitting the refresh button on your browser.
The next time you are in a meeting and you feel a yawn coming on, don't feel bad. You aren't necessarily bored. Your brain is just trying to optimize its performance. You are literally just trying to be a better version of yourself. And if the person next to you catches it, take it as a compliment. It means your brains are in sync. It means you have a social connection that goes back millions of years.
Yawning is a 6-second window into our evolutionary past. It's a reminder that no matter how much technology we surround ourselves with, we are still biological machines driven by ancient instincts. We are still a species that breathes together, cools our brains together, and stays alert together.
Before we wrap up, I have to ask, how many times did you yawn during this? Was it 1 time? 5 times? Did you manage to hold it back the entire time? If you are one of the 50% of people who stayed perfectly still, your self-control is legendary. But for the rest of you, don't worry. It just means you are human. It means you are empathetic. And it means your brain radiator is working exactly the way it should.
Science is full of these tiny mysteries that we take for granted every single day. We spend 33% of our lives sleeping. We blink 15,000 times a day, and we yawn because our heads get too hot. It's the little things that make being alive so incredibly strange. If you found this as fascinating as a 2 a.m. Wikipedia rabbit hole, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are digging into the why behind the weirdest things humans do every single week. Now, go ahead. Take that big yawn you've been holding in. You've earned it. Your brain will thank you for the cool down. See you in the next one.